Hey everybody, we are live. Well, I am live. You guys are here with me. If you heard a song when you were coming in, that was Donnie McClurkin. Hey Jazz, I'm good. Hey Tamu. Hey Mozilla, Isabel, Tinu, Live Soul. Why am I here? So I'm a really inexperienced Instagram live person. I think I told you last time I don't like going on live because I like to control everything. But I wanted to type the title of what I wanted to talk about and pin it. I have no concept of how to do that. So people who come in afterwards, I'll try and maybe recap what I'm waffling on about today. But to give you a sense of what I want to talk about, while I wait for people to come into the room, it's healing, but it's more of a conversation than a teaching. It might end up being a teaching, to be honest, but it's more of a back and forth conversation between us, because I was like lying in bed a minute ago thinking about something, and I was like, you know what, I wonder what Instafam think about this, because I just was like, I'm not sure, wrestling with some ideas, and I thought I'm gonna come on live and talk to you guys and see what you think about it. So how is everybody today? Some small talk. I generally hate small talk, but some small talk before I get into the full topic. How are we all doing? I was saying in my webinar yesterday that I really know what day it is, and I literally had to think to myself, what day is it today? It's Wednesday, so I can get a concept of kind of what everyone's doing, feeling, where you might be in the week. So it's midweek. The moon moved into Scorpio today, so you might be feeling a little pull, a little heavier emotions, a little desire for some connection. I know I am. You guys are kind of an unresponsive crowd. I see you coming in. I'm well, just so tired. Okay, Jax, I won't force you to type then. Anyone else? Isabel says that explains everything. Yes, today is Scorpio feels kind of day. Hi, Rare. Not doing so bad today. How are you? I'm okay. I feel good. I feel like sometimes coming into these like live spaces with you makes me feel better. I just feel kind of energized, charged up. Just been traveling a lot today. Oh, I love traveling. Not traveling for fun, commuting. That's a different kind of word. I love commuting. Okay, so what I wanted to talk to you about today is really a concept that I've seen like circulating the spiritual slash kind of online digital space for at least a year, and it's the idea that healing is a false paradigm. That's what I've titled this. I couldn't pin it, but that's what I want to talk about. And the concept is that you don't need to heal, and that you're already whole and you need to like be whole. I'm so terrible. I'm really biased when I'm expressing things, so you can hear in the tone of my voice already that I'm like side-eyeing this concept, but not so much so that I'm not willing to engage and think about it. And when I was thinking about it coming online, I had some like understandings or mini light bulb moments. And it's funny because when I did a tarot reading for myself, one of the months back, one of the things that the Spirit said to me is that I learned from teaching. And so I just find that whenever I'm preparing to talk, I suddenly get it in a way that I don't get when I'm like sitting on my own. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is healing like a false paradigm. Do we really need to heal? And I think it's interesting because I think today is either, or yesterday was Mental Health Awareness Day, or it's Mental Health Awareness Week. I'm not even sure. I'd actually decided that I had no real intention of speaking on it this year, not from any space of shame or disinterest, but just that I think it's fine to listen sometimes and cultivate listening spaces. And as someone who is typically talking, hello, Emriel, love you, I missed you too. As someone who's typically talking about healing and that kind of thing, it's sometimes good to not always be on your podium and to sit and just listen to people's stories. And I've been really taken by what people were sharing. And then today, as I was like came up with this topic, I was like, oh, okay, this topic's right on time. So it wasn't intentional for me to talk about like mental well-being or health or healing in that way, but it's just what I wanted to talk about. Okay, so one of the first places I wanted to start with this is that in terms of like not thinking about yourself as having to heal, or thinking about healing as a kind of a limited concept, I just feel for those of us embodied as Black, for those of us in Black communities particularly, Like, the healing conversation is so progressive for us right now, and it is only just begun. Like, I would say only in the last somewhere between 5 years till now have we even began to have conversations about kind of our mental health and therapy in the ways that we're doing, and seeing people publicly not just say that they've been to therapy as like a one-off or as like a intermediary intervention, but that they're doing therapy on an ongoing basis, like they're integrating it as part of their lives. And we've also seen alongside that people exploring kind of spiritual modes of healing, you know, so seeing tarot reading as a form of like supplemental therapy, for example. And this is really, really new, and I think it's new for us particularly because we're coming from a space where in our families it is normal to be silenced in shame, to not tell anybody what's going on, to not acknowledge that anything has happened, to like not acknowledge our pain, and to keep moving and to keep pushing. So I feel like the large groups of us now that are thinking about what it means to heal, on what terms we can heal, what it looks like to feel whole, like that's super, super important. So before I keep waffling on, what do you guys think about that? Just as that beginning, like, do you think the idea of like healing in itself is unimportant? Should we be thinking about our well-being in a different way? Or do you think that the concept of healing is valid and useful? Hello to everyone who's just joining as well. Hopefully I will be able to save this live and post it, so you'll get my earlier conversation preamble about what I'm talking about today. But it's basically, is healing a false paradigm? Very important and essential to well-being. Live 360. So Live 360, tell me, I know who you are. Can you see why people think that it's all healers? But this is healers. This is not random people. This is like spiritual people that I really respect. Can you see why they think it's not important? Can we kind of understand that? Everyone's saying it's really important. Okay. It's most definitely valid and useful. Healing is vital to our well-being and self-preservation. It's very important, super important. Does anyone can like... It's funny because as an academic, this is what I'm trained to do anyway, as in I can hold a perspective, but I'm meant to examine the other perspective, okay? So like I'm always thinking, is there any validity to this other side of the argument? Like how can I make room for that mentally? How can I really critique it and engage it? I have thoughts, like I kind of scribbled them down before I jumped online, that I'm going to share with you about a different way of thinking about healing. But I just wanted to see if any of you had any, because before I had these thoughts I was just like, I don't know, let's see what everybody else thinks. Are there ways that we can... I hear the thing about detachment, but sometimes it feels like avoidance. I think detachment is rough. Like it's a rough concept, and then sometimes I feel like the way that we talk about detachment can be asking us to not care, or to... It's like denying your humanity. Yeah, so it's almost like disconnecting from your emotions, from your feelings, is what I used to feel, what I was being told to do with the concept of detachment. And as a deeply feeling person, one, I didn't want to. Two, I think sometimes we hold on to our pain because it's how we keep our boundary, you know? So it's like, if you've been like wounded by someone, or you're in like environments of woundings, like family situations which aren't going away, for example, or relationships, sometimes like if you forget what's happened to you, if you don't hold it, you lose that boundary. You know, you forgive, and forgiveness is fine, but you allow that person to engage with you in the same way, and then you end up wounded. So I think sometimes we hold on to our pain purely as like a remembrance that don't do that, or don't allow this, or keep your guard up. I'm not saying that's even the best way to deal with things, but so the concept of detachment is very often asking us to let go of things that either we feel are really important to us, or that are actually really helpful in healing. I'm going to scroll up and read your comments in a sec. And so what I really think is that the thing about detachment I'm starting to understand now is it isn't that cognitive dissonance, or it's not the shutting off and avoiding and pretending you're not feeling something, but it's about cultivating the observing self, which is, I've been learning, as like really part of the Libra tradition, and part of what Libra is here to show us. And by that I mean, it's like, like I saw a post online in this week, a meme. You know me, I'm always taking issues with memes. I saw a meme and it was like, you don't have to respond emotionally to like everything that happens to you. You need to like control your mind or something. I was like, actually, no, it's perfectly fine to have emotional responses to things. It's how you take action on those things. So the observing mind is about creating distance between yourself, your soul self, and the emotion, the experience. And so you can create or cultivate space to hold that feeling rather than being completely immersed in the feeling and therefore governed by it. Now, I believe that detachment is more than that, and I think the detachment has a lot to do with release and letting go, which I might talk about later. But I think that's the beginning of it, is just taking a step back from the immediacy of what's happening, or the immediacy of a situation, or the immediacy of a desire, and recognizing it as something that is you're experiencing, but that is not the fullness and the totality of you. I want to just scroll up. Oh, went too far. And see comments that I missed. As a Black woman, I'm only beginning to come to terms with the importance of identifying my traumas and healing through it. I've only recently started prioritizing that unapologetically. Completely, I agree. So I really think it's a new conversation for us. And so I don't think we're even in the space to start saying healing is like false or unnecessary. I think we need to keep going and keep going down this path. Live 360 says, yes, how can you fully learn the lesson? Yeah, you have to be present to the experience, to the feelings, to the emotions. Tini says, interesting perspective. Well, I think part of what the argument against like the fact that the idea that we need to heal is that, I'm assuming anyway, is that it comes from an idea that we are broken. And I personally don't feel that way on my healing. I don't know, let me not lie, I have in the past. I've been doing this work for a while. I don't mean like service work, I mean work on myself for a while. So I don't conceptualize myself anymore as a broken person. But like 2-3 years ago, situations, experiences definitely have me broken. And like living out instinctual reactions to pain, you know, just reacting to things that were hurting me. And so I think there is maybe when we are conditioned, let's say, by this society and by this culture to believe that we are broken, inadequate, needing of something else, not enough of this, that, or the third. And I'm guessing that the concept is that we're bringing some of that into our healing practice and trying to resolve our inferiority, our insecurity, our sense of inadequacy through healing work, you know, through like working on the self, getting better. And like I said, it's not really a perspective I personally hold, so maybe I should actually reach out to someone who does believe this and get a clearer grasp of what their understanding is. But from my observation, I think that's kind of where they're coming from. What do you all think about that concept? The idea that the healing movement implies that you are broken. And hey to everyone who's just joined. So for the people coming into the room, I am talking about the topic, is healing a false paradigm? As in, there are people who believe that we don't need to heal, that healing is a false concept, and that we're already whole. It's interesting, like I can't see if anyone's typing or not, so like I'm hanging back to see if anyone has any thoughts about I'm used to like that other live chat stuff. Software I use shows me if people are wanting to speak, so I'm like hanging back wondering if anyone wants to respond to that, and I fully don't know. So I'm gonna move on. If you do want to let me know your concepts or whether you agree or not that the ideas about healing implies that we're broken, then just type it. I'll scroll back up and read it. So I don't know that healing automatically means something is broken. I mean, it actually, in the practical terms of things, right, it actually just has to mean that if something is not broken, in disrepair, like if we would never need to heal it. I agree that it used to. That was definitely the collective narrative, but in the last 2 years or so, that has changed for me. I used to describe a time as me being broken. Now it is a master of my shadows. Yeah, that's really great. So I do. Maybe that's why this conversation is happening, because it's about maybe helping people to step out of the concept that you are inadequate or needing to work on yourself to get to a different place, and that really everything that we're doing is about self-mastery. So Life 360, I think that makes a lot of sense. And as I was just saying before I read that, I think there is implied in the case of healing that there is something that is sick or broken or needs fixing, and that's just the word that we use, the language we're using. Those are the ideas and the concepts that come with it. You know, so healing might be related to like medicine, for example. Medicine is connected to sickness, for example. Tinu says, but then going to therapy would imply that the person is broken. I mean, it seems like at this point, I can imagine that this conversation could bring up difficult emotions for people and make people feel judged or criticized, and that's not my intention. So whilst I personally don't believe that any of us are broken on a soul level, like let's forget soul level, I don't really believe that any of us are broken, and yet I don't think that we should shy away from admitting what wounds us, what feels like trauma, what is not working. And I feel like you actually have to have that moment of recognition about where you are emotionally, spiritually, physically, before you can see where you want to apply your self-mastery lessons, apply your love, apply your healing principles, apply your rituals. So I feel like, whilst I don't think that we should think of ourselves as broken, because it's just not actually empowering, in the same vein, I don't think that we need to pretend that there aren't things that are wounding for us, that there aren't conditions of wounding that we want to work on, and that we can own that, and we can own that we're a work in progress and a masterpiece at the same time. The song that came into my mind just then was Jasmine Sullivan, and I think the song, I don't know if it's called Masterpiece or Mona Lisa, and it's a beautiful song. Go listen to Jasmine Sullivan. It's either called, like, maybe I'll post it to my Insta stories after this live, but she's just basically saying like every part of her is a masterpiece, and so we are both works in progress and masterpieces at the same time. I hope that answers you, Tinu. I'm really sorry if I'm going to start butchering people's names, because there's no pronunciation like sound. I can't ask you. Topi Morita, I'm really sorry. I think healing is about accepting the pain and not exclusively about being broken. Okay, that's cool. I can understand that. Okay, cool. So we're up to date with that. Okay, I've read all your comments. Hey to everyone coming into the room. I'm getting claps from Live 360, although I don't know what about, but I just started clapping too. Maybe she's in agreement with one of the comments or something that I said. Okay. So where do we want to go from here? I did write some notes. All right, so what I wanted to talk about is, from this concept that we don't need to heal, I do understand as well that people are profiting. Oh, you're Ed Sally. Oh, hey, my love. Really good to see you. So Esali's been in, like, I think you've been to every single webinar that I did for the Venus retrograde series, so it's really lovely to kind of connect with some of you all here and in this Instagram space, and it really feels like we're building community and relationships. So what I was going to say is, I feel like people definitely are profiting off of the concept of healing, and one of the first things that came to my mind was, within the last decade, let's say, obviously there was this like huge cultural moment, I'll call it, in which we were talking about single black women. It seems like it's simmered down a bit. I think the Black Girl Magic scene and movement has displaced that conversation somewhat, but there was a time when that was like the hot topic, and black women being unlovable and single and not being able to get married. And I really remember like so many events and speakers stepping forward to tell women, and black women specifically, how to adjust ourselves. And this is really, it really is speaking to heterosexual women very specifically as well. It would be interesting to do some research and to have some conversations about what was happening in queer spaces at the same time. But I know for a fact that this was an idea like really pitched at heterosexual black women, and there were a lot of men, particularly and black men, who were doing talks and holding events, expensive events, in which people would pay to go and listen to someone tell them about how to make personal adjustments to themselves to be more like, don't even with Steve Harvey, I cannot stand that man. Okay. But yeah, Steve Harvey did the book Think Like a Man. Even though I like the film, the first one, well, I might have liked the second one too, maybe I should rewatch it. But his whole, everything he was saying in that moment, someone said Tony Gaskins, it was not, no, it's a no from me. And I feel like a lot of women were really preyed upon at that time. And the reason it happened as well is because women and femmes are holding the feminine energy, okay? And I mean that is the intuitive, receptive parts of ourselves more strongly. We're very attached or open to that, not attached. And we are open, sensitive, and deeply feeling. And so we are most alive to the love drought, as I've been talking about this particular month, and we're most alive to the ways that the society and the culture that we live in is not nourishing us, and we don't have access to the love, radical love paradigms that we really want. And we've been primed by this culture to be most actively seeking it and thinking about it. So that's the audience that is primed to be on a quest for love. And there's a book by Bell Hooks called Communion, The Female Search for Love, that really is a great read. You should check that out. I'm going to look at the comments in a second before I lose my train of thought. So check that book out. And so I feel like in that sense, like the healing, like how that healing it has become an industry, and that there's a commercialization of wellness, you know, so loads of like, whether it's food or like physical activity, okay, so it's like what's the word I'm looking like, stripping yoga practice, for example, away from its spiritual roots and making it purely a physical experience that's about happiness. These are all examples of how healing has been like commercialized, and that our sense of ourselves as needing healing is developing profit for people or creating profit. And it's also that a lot of the events that we do, let's like keep it 100, particularly as women, a lot of our events and our ticketed events and the things that we pay for are around concepts of healing, me included. And so what I was saying in one of my posts a few weeks back is that this moment, particularly this kind of black feminist moment, has really created an economy around black feminism, and I'm not passing judgment on that. I'm observing it, I'm seeing it, I'm acknowledging it, and I'm thinking and watching about and looking at what that means and how I want to move in that space. But it is one of the ways in which we have created our own economic paradigm, and healing is a part of that. So let me just scroll up. Thank you, Life360. I thank you. You're typing the topic for me. Appreciated. Okay, let me see if I missed any comments. I've got, yes, there's too much pressure about chasing love rather than loving ourselves. You know, I actually, to some extent, disagree. Not specifically with you. I feel like women particularly are shamed for wanting love and intimacy. And I sometimes feel like the phrase like love yourself, or kind of the self-love concept, can actually be used to criticize us and diminish our power, and to act like connectedness, partnership, and intimacy are frivolous. And the culture wants us to believe that anyway, you know, or they only want us to believe it on their terms, which is what I talked about in my Venus retrograde webinar, which is the Hollywood illusion that love and partnership looks like this specific thing, and you can only access it by being these particular kinds of ways. And so when women express that they are feeling loveless, that they're desiring intimacy, that they feel lonely, then they get told, well, love yourself more. And I think that's a really damaging response to that. And yes, we need self-love and we need to cultivate self-love, but self-love is not actually a replacement for community, intimacy, and connection. It just actually isn't. So I feel like also the thing is, you can love yourself and not really be in community with and be on the receiving end of love from others, but you can't receive love from others if you don't love yourself. And so this is, I think, why people kind of try to make self-love primary, and it is primary, but it's not exclusive to the other thing. And I just want to clarify what I'm saying about you can't receive love if you can't love yourself, and I mean that. I actually do. It doesn't mean that people won't love you. That's not true. Like, the concept that if you don't love yourself you won't be loved is absolutely false. BS. People love you. You won't be able to receive the love. That's what it is. If you have not cultivated that loving kindness and compassion towards yourself, when people are loving you, you'll feel unworthy, you won't recognize it, you'll diminish it, you'll shy away from it, you won't be able to receive it. You have to be loving to self to recognize that, to even know what love is externally as well, to be able to sense that, oh, this person is matching the kind, loving, compassionate ways that I treat myself. I see that in another person. I recognize that as something that's good. And so if we're not self-loving and we're harmful towards ourselves in acts, in words, so in words and deeds, then we'll also engage in relationships with people, platonic and intimate, in which we will see acts of harm as normal, you know, because we're also harmful towards ourselves. So that's just my little spiel on self-love. I got some more comments. Currently reading All About Love by Bell Hooks. Have you read it? What do you think of it? I adore Bell Hooks. When I became an academic, my benchmarks in terms of the type of academic I wanted to be was Bell Hooks and Brené Brown, because for me they were two women who were taking the wisdom and the knowledge and the intellectual paradigm to talk about radical things such as love. And particularly in academic spaces, love is not in, you know, the patriarchy, the masculine energy, the cold intellect does not respect love. That's the patriarchy we're trying to do away with right now. But so you don't get to go into academic spaces really and have, you do now, more and more so increasingly, but for me, I didn't see that kind of conversation. So these were two women for me on the front line, like pioneering the affect theory movement. And I was like, that's it. I want to take the skill I have, the intellect I have, and create theory, knowledge, concepts, experiences for my community that relates to them having a more loving experience. That's what I cared about. So Bell Hooks has a trilogy. So it's All About Love, New Visions, Communion and Salvation, I think, are the names of her 3 books in that trilogy. I cannot recommend it enough. It changed my life. I read it when I was an undergraduate, and Bell Hooks was the beginning of my feminist journey for me. Like, that's where it completely started, like, with her. Okay. Whilst I think it has been commercialized, I think we should be taking space in the industry. Yeah. I need more time to really grapple with what I think about it and my own space within it. I think women should be empowered. I think women should have money. I think women should have access to practical, strategic, institutional power. And so having businesses matters. Running businesses matters. I think we're least likely to demand income from our labor, and so the very fact that I'm thinking about whether I should be charging for the work I'm doing, not just because it's spiritual work, but even like lecturing or talking, you know, is a lot to do with the fact that I'm a woman, and that's how I've been cultured to even think, is my labor worth it? And so I agree with you in that sense that we do need to cultivate industry, but what we don't want to do, this is an interesting segue, because what we don't want to do is create industries that are a duplicate of the capitalist cultures that have been decimating us, you know, that have been exploiting us, that have been denying our space for connection, healthy community, balance between work and spiritual life. Like, we don't want to replicate that. And that was kind of one of my main challenges when I started my business and doing my personal spiritual practice, is that, and Spirit definitely was just like, I was disciplined for this, but was taking the same ideas from work and corporate space into the spiritual space, you know, and the same ideas around how you make money, you know, so working long hours, expending myself, thinking about, you know, and not that I don't love this work, but really thinking a lot about how to make it sustainable financially. And so it was just like, no, like, you're not that. And it's not that everybody can't be, but speaking to myself specifically, one of the things that's been revealed to me recently is that I am on the path of a priestess, and I'm just, let's say, I belong to the similar tradition of the shaman, and the shaman doesn't do the 9-to-5 work, you know. And so my whole approach, borrowing those ideas because I'm good at them, and transposing them, was like, Spirit said, do not do that. You have to completely rethink your work cycle. And so that's what I'm working on now. So if we're going to take up space in the industry, we need to think about what values and we want to build within that industry that makes it sustainable, healthy, and progressive. So Life 360, I was going to repost it. I've saved it. I know that you were, I can't remember what it was like ITV, I think, or BBC News. You were on TV recently talking about your business, your space in the industry, and I loved how much accountability you had around your business practices, and being ethical. You know, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, let me scroll up. A lot of people are passive followers and become victims of misdirected wellness causes. One has to have personal definition for their wellness. People need help, to be honest. People need help. People are in pain. People are seeking. They're looking for something. And I think it's, you know, it happens. And I think at any point, any of us can be taken by an idea, a concept, a thing that ultimately isn't right for us, and all we can do is be compassionate towards ourselves about those decisions that we've made and find paths that are more in alignment with what works for us. But yeah, people want more than what we're being shown, and people don't have access to knowledge, spiritual knowledge particularly. So it happens a lot. I do agree with you, but I can only come at that with compassion. We're social beings, for sure. I totally agree with it. Agree about it being okay to want intimacy. What I meant is society and family putting pressure on you. Oh my gosh, if you're single, the single person allowance when booking a hotel. Oh my, what? Listen, I'm a hermit. I do a lot solo, including when I travel. And that's been one of the barriers for me, is the cost of traveling as an individual person. Like, why does everything need 2 people? Like, it's not remotely affordable unless you're willing to stay in a hostel, and I am bougie. I have Venus in Libra. I like beautiful, comfortable settings. I have this rule for myself that if I'm going away, where I want to go cannot be less comfortable than my house. Like, it just cannot. Why am I doing that? And so, yeah, it's a problem. Also, I do think there's a lot of shame still in this moment around singleness, and I agree with you. I think marriage and children is still pitched at us as a destination, as an achievement, as a thing that we should be striving towards. It's something I've been praying about. I am unpartnered, is as I call it, because we're all single. I am unpartnered, and I've been talking to Spirit about the shame and the wounding that's been placed on me, and that's associated with this particular stage of my life, which is my most fruitful and my most progressive. Like, I'm going to get a little astro heavy for a minute, but I have South Node in Libra and as a North Node in Aries. So as a person with the South Node in Libra, actually my comfort zone and where I regress and don't grow is in partnership. And when I'm solo is when I'm able to really commit to myself and push. And it's really about me finding the balance between those. But I say that to say now that I'm unpartnered, like I am thriving. And when I've been in relationships and seeking to get my emotional needs met, that's when I've been fucking up, okay, everything. I'm willing to compromise my hopes, my dreams and my wishes. And I'm learning not to do that. So I agree. And I think there's a lot of pressure placed on us. And as I continue to do this work, I'll see if Spirit gives me any wisdom about how we can counter the shame associated with being a single person. Roshi says, really want to get into it. Thank you. Great. Yes, for bell hooks. Congrats on the piece, Despa. Thank you. I mean, it's work. Like, it is not an easy path, but it's mine, so I embrace it. A lot of people are vulnerable in these spaces, yeah. So for everyone who's just come into the room, I am talking about the concept or idea is healing a false paradigm. Hopefully I will be able to post this onto my Insta stories, or I don't know what I'm talking about. I just got a WhatsApp message and it distracted me. I'm sorry. I will post this up after, so hopefully it will be available 24 hours so you can catch the first part of this. Okay, so I've been talking about like profiting from healing. Now I want to talk to you a bit about a big Iyanla. I don't want to talk about Iyanla Vanzant specifically, because that's a whole topic in and of itself. But since we're on healing, and I love TV shows, and I really wanted to come on live and talk about the Braxton family values, and I just didn't get around to it. Other things took priority in the time. I thought this was actually be a good time to talk about it. I don't know how many people in here have watched Braxton Family Values. Let me know in the comments if you do. So that's Toni Braxton, living legend, one of my favorite artists of like all time. I adore Toni Braxton and her sisters. They have a TV show, and it's based around them as a family, and they've had a lot of family breakdown recently, and they went on Iyanla Fix My Life to discuss it. And I won't talk about it if no one in here actually watches it, because I don't think it would be valuable. Isabel says I haven't, but I love Iyanla. Yeah, if no one in here has watched the show, it probably won't be that helpful for me to talk about it here. So I'll just wait a couple more seconds to see if everyone's going to say yes, they have seen it. Watch it. It's worth watching. But I just thought there was a lot in there. And it comes back to what I was saying about us starting in our communities, only beginning that healing conversation. Okay, I don't think anyone has watched the show, so I won't talk about it here. I might do a separate live to talk about it. So at this point then, I think I'm only going to be here for about another 10 minutes. I want to say that the concept that I think the people who are saying that we don't need to heal, we'll start explaining what this means, is that the soul is already whole. Adiola, have you watched the Braxton Family Values episode? I'm dancing to the music in my head. Thumbs up. Is that a yes? I'm assuming it's a yes. Someone else in the room said they watched it. That was a lot. But intuitively, I'm feeling like I shouldn't speak about it here now, so let me move forward. So the concept is that the soul is already whole, okay? I will do a separate live about that, I think. The soul is already whole, and I want to show you... Shall we go there? Yeah, I want to show you the tarot card that really describes it. So this is the Hanged Man. You will see that. And the Hangman really is, this is the human, you, the self. And this would be the spiritual astral plane, heaven, however you want to think about it. And this is you descending into this, these lines here, this blue area with the grid is the matrix. It's the society, the culture, the system that we live in now. This is you descending down into this matrix, into this experience. And this snake hair represents Kundalini energy. And this is the journey of the Kundalini energy in which it becomes activated and we gain wisdom, knowledge, power, ashe, through coming embodied and being in earth, right? Here it is. So this is part of the concept. If you come in this form, you're whole already. You know, you are on a spiritual level, you are supreme. You know, like there's nothing about your spiritual self that needs any healing or any adjustment. But the truth, or my truth, is that when we do come down into this matrix, so we come down into this contemporary experience into the world, and there's poverty and sexual abuse and racism and heteronormativity and every other ism you can think about, and Trump and everything else. There is actually a lot in this culture that is traumatizing. There's a lot of bondage in this culture. And so my question for the reality of, yes, on the soul level, you don't need any healing. And I was like, well, actually, when you come here, the wounding that you experience is not, I don't want to say it's not an illusion, because I guess it can be, but it's not, what's the word I'm looking for? I want to say that it's not an experience that you're not having, but that's not great English, not great expression of that. But it's part of your experience, let's say, and it is part of the experience that you're meant to be here and respond to. So how do we do that then? My main question was like, well, how do you, if you believe that healing is not, you're already whole, the soul's already whole, how do you actually talk about healing and trauma? Like, how do you have that conversation? How do you create space from that? Do you think you can inherit trauma 100%? 110%? Yes you can, yes you can, yes you can. You can, there are scientific studies that shows that trauma is passed down through DNA. Some of these scientific studies were done on do you know what, I hate that we do that. I hate that I just did that. Oh, I love myself at the same time. I'm wonderful. So the reason I'm having this inner conversation that you guys are watching, that's why I started laughing, like I'm having a whole conversation with myself. The reason I said that and then doubled back is because when I just said to you there's scientific studies, that was about legitimizing the idea, the concept that you can inherit trauma. And it's like this idea that the masculine energy, the rational mind is the only truth. And so if science says it, if there's evidence, if there's empirical evidence, if there's research, there's academic papers, then we believe it. And if there's intuitive knowledge, if there's indigenous knowledge, if there's experiential knowledge, if there's emotional and spiritual knowledge, then we don't. And so, yes, that doesn't refute. There are scientific papers that were studied, particularly people who generations after... I'm losing my words. This is really bad. My academic brain is gravy. But someone said drag. Life 360 said drag me. After the genocide of the Jews, right? The Holocaust. My goodness, it took me so long to get to that word. So, yes, they studied generations, post-Holocaust generations, and were able to see that there's trauma is passed through DNA. Of course, if you are black, then I also believe that trauma can be passed through the DNA over centuries. There's also, for me, there's also the cultural, social, emotional, psychic trauma, all of that. There's layers of it, and there's so much, like you can be born into ancestral trauma, generational trauma, and then you can also be drawn into specific trauma. So like your mum, when she was pregnant with you, could have been undergoing abuse, like whatever, then that's another layer of trauma. Yes, I think we can inherit trauma 110%. And so that's why I'm saying, like, the concept that we did, like, healing is not necessary. I was like, I don't know, like, it is. It's my true belief. But I do think there's some power here in that the thing to do spiritually is to remember your former state, to remember yourself as a spirit, as a soul. You are more than the sacred animal, the flesh here. You are eternal, and that eternal self is eternally worthy. And so rather than healing, let's say, because healing in the way that we talk about it is a never ending process, and that's because the matrix that we live in is continuously bombarding us with trauma and wounding, you know. So it's like you never finish healing because you're not in this space. It's about to, it seems ridiculous that people are saying healing isn't necessary. I'm really laughing. I actually posted, did I post it? I probably didn't post it because I don't believe in it. But I may post on my Insta stories some of the stories where I've seen this, like, so that because I don't want to misrepresent people's ideas. I'm going to post it so you can get a sense of, because you might be thinking, why on earth are you even coming here to speak about this? Like, who is even saying this? People are saying it, okay? So what I'm trying to say is, as long as you live in this world, you will experience pain and you will experience things that are difficult, and you will have to grapple with trauma, past, present, whenever it is, it will happen. And so that's why healing is forever, because you're in a constant state of having to, you know, that there's these memes or sayings that you can't heal in the environment that made you sick. Well, literally, the world we live in is the environment that is making us sick, okay? So this is why healing is forever. But at the same time, the other way of thinking about this is like remembering yourself as infinitely valuable and not in need of healing in this way. And so all you're really doing, and I think this is what they're arguing or trying to communicate to us, is that you're stripping, releasing and letting go of anything that doesn't reflect you on the soul level. So it's not that there's a destination that you need to get to. There's not that there's a version of yourself that's different. You're only removing the layers. So it would be akin to me taking off my makeup after this live, like wiping it off. You know, I've put on this makeup, but the me underneath it is just there. It's static. And I think that's what they're trying to get us to think about within the concept of healing, is that there isn't a thing to do or a place to get to. You're not inadequate in any way, and that you're actually just removing every idea, every experience that disempowers you from your spiritual state. The Hanged Man card, and this is Pisces energy, which is the collective consciousness. So that's it. That's my spiel. That's my little conversation I wanted to have with you about healing and whether it's a false paradigm or not. A couple of people coming in as I'm closing, but hello. And yeah, I don't know if there's any other thoughts or comments or anything else you guys want to ask me while you're here before I jump offline. And I've been holding my clear quartz. Clear quartz is really working for me at the moment. I'm feeling like it's the crystal I gravitate to the most. I'm loving it. This isn't the highest quality clear quartz, you can see. Nevertheless, I love it. I have a couple. Do they mean just letting go? I mean, let's start by, I don't really know what they mean because I can't really speak for other people. So let me speak for what I mean. And no, I didn't know that. I don't even know what just letting go means, to be quite honest, you know. If you have, thanks for the live, you're welcome. If you have gone through experiences, okay, so let me just talk about it like this. I have experienced depression in my life multiple times, cycles of depression, and to say to me just let go of that would be ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? Like, we wouldn't have the whole mental health awareness day or the industries that we have or the talking therapies that we have if the alternative to thinking about healing was simply just let go of it. So I'm going to say no to that, Lara. But in my concept, what I think it means, I don't know if depression is the best example of this, but in terms of understanding your original state, is like, there's a book by M. Scott Peck called The Road Less Traveled, and I love it. And if depression is something you think about or you experience, definitely read this book. M. Scott Peck, The Road Less Traveled. And I really agree with him that depression is diagnostic. You know, depression is your spirit and your soul letting you know it is not okay with things emotionally, in your environment, in the culture. I remember when I was doing my PhD, and I was like really depressed at that point, and I went to see the GP so I could get some time off, and I was talking to the GP about my depression, and he was like, look, you're not sick, the culture is, you know. And I was like, yes, GP, come through with the facts. Okay, so I really feel like depression is a spiritual thing that is letting you know that your soul is suffering, and it is asking something of you, okay? But what happens is, you know, so in spiritual spaces we might refer to what people call depression as dark night of the soul, and we get stuck there, you know, we get stuck. So depression can be regenerative is the word. So I don't know, like for those of you who go through cycles of depression, sometimes you come out of it and you have greater clarity, understanding. Sometimes you make changes. So for me, it was like, actually, this PhD process is making me sick. I don't just need 2 months off, I need a much longer process off from it. And so putting that in place, and then I'm recovering and regenerating out of that state of depression. So depression can be regenerative. It can give us mental, emotional, spiritual wisdom and knowledge, but we get stuck there. Like, we don't tend to get out of the doorway. We don't really know how to get to the other side. We don't get the love, the space even. Many people don't even have the space. Sometimes, like, you need to collapse. Sometimes you need to be quiet. Sometimes you need to stop working, and you can't. And so we get forced into, like, living in depression as a condition rather than a process. And it's more complex than that. And I know that this is a sensitive topic for people, so I don't want anyone to I just can't control if I offend people. Just forget that, okay? Just know that I'm saying what I'm saying with love, and I don't mean it as a judgment to anyone experiencing depression. And I don't mean that depression isn't real. And spiritual people say that all the time. I don't believe that, but I do think that there are reasons it happens, and some of those reasons are spiritual reasons, and some of them are chemical, and some of them are emotional, and we should be thinking and listening and trying to engage with them on all levels. I hope that answered the question. I don't know if it did. So in terms of, okay, I didn't actually answer the question, so let me fully answer it. In terms of my concept of, if I wasn't using the healing paradigm to respond to depression, it would be therefore removing from my life the things that are injuring my spirit, that's causing me to feel depressed, okay? So it could be the oppressive kind of job environment that I live in. I'm finding work that matches my spiritual and emotional needs, you know? Maybe that's I can only work certain days of the week. Maybe that's I need to work somewhere where I don't have to commute 2 hours. Like, it's things like that. Removing things that are not in alignment with what keeps you at your optimum self, feeling expressive, feeling in your spiritual creative power, feeling in alignment with yourself, feeling internally balanced. So Isabella says, amen. That is it. That's what I've got to say on the topic. I don't think there's any more questions, or you probably would have typed it while I was talking. So thank you for joining me on live. It's fun. I like it. I like coming to chat. And I may at some point still do the Braxton Family Values live. Thank you, Lara. Thank you for the question too. Questions get my juices flowing, get me thinking. So have a good evening, everybody. I know some of you have to get up early for work, so peaceful sleep. Set intentions that you receive wisdom, knowledge, and understanding as you sleep as well. I'm a person that gets a lot of communication through dreams, so I hope you sleep well, and I hope tomorrow is great for you. Goodbye, everyone. Much, 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 much love.